Welcome back to the Paddy Power Poker School. Semi-bluffing is different than outright bluffing because when you semi-bluff, your hand can actually improve to be the best hand on the turn or river. The definition of semi-bluffing then is betting with a probable inferior hand that could improve to be the best hand in a subsequent round. Semi-bluffs are actually a common and profitable strategy because they can win pots in two different ways. So let's look at the two ways you can win when semi-bluffing. You can actually win the pot by getting your opponents to fold immediately. This could happen if your opponent's hands are actually much weaker than you might have thought in the first place, even though they still might be stronger than yours. The other way to win the hand when semi-bluffing is when your hand actually improves to be the best hand on subsequent rounds of betting, usually the turn or river. So let's look at these two ways to win in real table action. Here you are up against two opponents with the Jack of Diamonds and the Eight of Spades. The flop gives you an open-ended straight draw, meaning you're going to have a pretty strong hand here if a queen or a 7 comes on the turn or river, either of which of course is going to give you a straight. Your opponents actually both check to you after the flop, so you decide to bet. That bet is a semi-bluff because you can fairly assume that your jack high here is probably not the best hand, but you do have 8 outs, 4 queens and 4 7s to improve to the winning hand. This is an excellent spot to semi-bluff, and you could win the pot right here, which is certainly one of the positive outcomes for semi-bluffing. But you also have to be prepared for those situations when you get called. Well, in that case, you see the turn card, and hopefully it helps you like this 7 did here, which actually gives you the nuts. Great card here, of course, and one of the benefits of making a semi-bluff is that it would be more difficult, if not unlikely, for your opponents to put you on this straight. Opponents will usually try and put you on a top pair with a decent kicker or middle pair when you're betting in position like you just did here, which is a reasonable assumption. But let's face it, this isn't going to fall into place so perfectly too often. It's just that when it does, you can usually build a nice pot and add an element of deception to your game. Alright, so let's get back to poker reality. A king comes on the turn and it gets checked to you. Now you could bet again here, but personally I would check here too, because if your opponents called your flop bet, they are likely to call this bet too, and that king is kind of a dangerous card, and one of your opponents could actually be waiting to check raise you here. So instead, since they check to you, I would also check here and see the free river card, and you hope you get your straight there. Otherwise, keep this pot small, especially if another dangerous card comes on the river. Here are some other factors to keep in mind when attempting a semi-bluff. If the player you are semi-bluffing calls a higher percentage of the time, well, that sort of negates one of the advantages of semi-bluffing in the first place, in that it's unlikely you will win the pot with a bet. So make sure you know who and what type of player you are semi-bluffing. Semi-bluffing against multiple opponents isn't a good idea either, because somebody usually has something, and that somebody will be the one to call you down. Against multiple players, it's probably just best to call and keep everyone in the pot, and then value bet if you do hit your straight. So now you can watch for semi-bluffing opportunities at your next poker game online, and also see which of your opponents might be doing it themselves. You can also find more bluffing and poker lessons just like this one by visiting the Poker School at paddypowerpoker.com.